Well, good morning, and a pleasant good morning to each and every one of you. Good morning. And we welcome you to Dialed In. I'm Thom Brennaman, normally joined by Luke Brennaman, but he's in class allegedly today at Indiana University. So it didn't work out. We're taping the show that's going to run on Thursday. This is Wednesday, so we don't have any chat or anything like that. So please forgive me ahead of time. But our contributor, our producer, our engineer, our man, the jack of all trades, Casey McAllister. Casey, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. How you doing?
I'm fine. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. We just wrapped up off the bench here, and we really got into it about trades and whatnot that happened
Right.
recently. Um, this is the Bengals versus Browns week, so of course we're all butting heads with Kenner over the Browns. That's been
Yep.
a lot of fun.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just been a good sports weekend or good
I
sports
got to
week.
tell you, Casey, and I think I know the answer to this question because you were putting a roof on your own house. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
You and your dad are doing it together, right?
That's right.
Okay. I bring this up because today we might hear a lot of racket in the background of our house. The guy's checking out the furnace here, and we're overdue for that. And so, excuse me ahead of time. I only bring it up because I'm always amazed, and it's the same when I travel on football or basketball or football crews or whatever it is. I always get to know, maybe better than anybody else on the crew, I get to know the person whose job it is to make everything work. And I'm always amazed by those guys because I'm not one of those guys. There might be people that watch broadcasters on television, or your doctor, or a lawyer, or whatever. I am far more amazed at plumbers, electricians, roofer, guys that can do the stuff that you can do. I mean, it's amazing that you were able to grow up in that kind of household. And I'm assuming your dad was the one who taught you how to do all that stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, and in my dad's older age now, I mean, he's kind of he's basically leading me in the right direction, and I have to do some of the more heavier lifting things, some of
Sure.
the more things that he can't do because of his knees or his back, and yeah, it's great. He's taught me a lot of things. Um, just the other weekend, I replaced all my brakes and rotors on my car. That was just another thing I could tip my hat to my dad for. He's been great. He's taught me a lot of great things, and it's saved me a lot of money over the
I was
long
going to say
haul.
it saved you a ton of money. There's no doubt about that. But I really am. And I give a tip of the cap to all the guys out there who are doing that kind of stuff, more trade stuff. And Lord knows this country needs more of it. And I just wish I was able to do some of that stuff. So good for you. And our show today is sponsored by, as always, UDF and Encore Technologies. We come your way twice a week, live on Mondays at 9 o'clock on Chatterbox Sports. We post later in the day on the Believe Network, so you can find us there. Thursdays, 5 after 12 Eastern Time. You can find us on YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page, where you are right now. You can download us anytime, anywhere. Just search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. All right, as Casey mentioned, Bengals are back at it today after Tuesday's regular off day. And it's time to zero now on the Cleveland Browns. The two in state rivals tee it up Sunday at 1 o'clock along the shores of Lake Erie. I love saying that. The Bengals have not won there, and we've talked about this already earlier in the week. You guys have talked about it on Off the Bench since 2017. So that means their head coach, Zach Taylor, has never won there. Star quarterback Joe Burrow has never won there. In fact, the Bengals have only scored more than 19 points in a game in Cleveland once since 2019. And a lot of those games, they've gotten blown out of the gym. If we think the Bengals, though, have had their issues, and Lord knows they have this season, they pale in comparison to their in state brethren. Both teams are paying their quarterbacks $250 million to play well. Burrow's playing well. Deshaun Watson is not. The Brownies have lost 4 in a row. They were swept this season already by the NFC East. Think about that for a minute, okay? I mean, those teams are all right, but believe me, we know they're nothing great. We just saw the Giants. The Eagles, the Bengals will see them in a couple of weeks. Dallas, I mean, flip a coin on that team. I mean, they just got their brains beat in by Detroit over the weekend. And so, the Brownies have been swept by the East. Who's the team I'm forgetting in the East?
Commanders.
The Commanders are good. Commanders are good. Watson has been sacked 33 times in 6 games, 5 times in the last game. Yesterday, Cleveland traded away their best receiver. Now, you could argue, I guess, about that. But Amari Cooper, over the last number of years, has certainly been their best receiver. He's off to Buffalo. Casey, can you imagine how Amari Cooper must feel waking up this morning, going from Josh Allen in the first place Bills to the dead last Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns?
Well, you mean the opposite. Waking up from the nightmare
Pardon me.
that he was in
Thank you.
to now being
Yes,
with
of
Josh
course.
Allen.
Of course.
Yeah, he must be on cloud 9, Tom. I mean, he went from the bottom of the barrel of the NFL league to a Super Bowl contender and a potential MVP type level quarterback. He must be just thrilled. I'm sure he's going to do well and succeed in Buffalo. Really like Amari Cooper. It's good for him. Great for him to get out of that disaster in Cleveland.
Oh, boy. Is it bad? Is it bad? Another big trade went down yesterday. You guys talked about it earlier. Davante Adams is off to the New York Jets, where, of course, he is reunited with his former Packer quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. A lot of debate. Does this make the Jets a playoff contender? They lose the other night to the Bills. They make terrible mistakes. They make all kinds of penalties. They commit all kinds of penalties. The defense played well enough last week to win that game. I thought they should have beaten Buffalo in that game, but we know they did not. What does this mean now having Adams to go along with Garrett Wilson? I think it's a pretty good 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Jets offense was kind of struggling a little bit, even with all the weapons they had around them. I thought they would have maybe gone out and gotten some more offensive line help, because right now I don't think that offensive line has been up to par what they thought it could be. But having Davante Adams, you receiving Davante Adams on any team is going to elevate this offense, whether it's a little bit, it could be significantly. The connection between Rodgers and Adams, though, is immeasurable.
Yeah.
Those two were the most dominant duo at quarterback receiver in the league for many years. And now we get to see the connection again. Garrett Wilson's probably not going to be double teamed anymore. Aaron Lazard is only going to be that much more valuable because now he's the third option on the team. I just feel like this is a great move for the Jets, and it is a desperate move, but I think it's going to pay off for them, because I think that when I look at this team, it felt like there was a lot of mistakes from the other receivers around them, and it was just the Lazard-Wilson-Hall show. Now that they have Davante Adams in that mix, I think that a lot of pressure gets alleviated from the rest of those guys, and they can actually start balling out even more than they already were.
All right, let me ask you this. The trade deadline is still a ways away. But I'm going to ask you to be the Bengals general manager, Duke Tobin, for a minute here.
Okay.
If for some reason the Bengals were to lose this weekend to Cleveland, do you consider starting to make phone calls about T. Higgins?
I don't know if the loss to Cleveland, I don't know if that is what triggers them to make a move off of T. Higgins. I think in their mind, they went all in and giving him the tag. I just don't see them moving off of him unless they're completely out of it. And I know 2-5 would not be a great spot moving forward the rest of the season, but they're not mathematically.
No, but Casey, but you know and I know, okay? If they go to 2-5 on the year, okay, they are 0-2 already if that should happen in the division. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think they win in a close game. We'll get to our picks later. But if they go to 2-5, they're 0-2 in the division already. They have to go to Baltimore. They have the Steelers twice, and they get the Brownies coming back home. You're winless in the conference. Their only two wins are against NFC teams. I mean, mathematically eliminated? No, of course not after 7 weeks. But I mean, come on. We know if they lose this week, they're not getting in the playoffs.
You're probably right. But if I was Duke, I think it's more valuable to hold on to T and franchise tag him again and then trade him or try to extend him rather than trying to trade him at this point. I think the teams that you look at that need a receiver are teams that, one, have already traded for one, like the Bills or possibly the Jets. You could include that team in there. The teams that are in contention right now that need a receiver, like the Chiefs, there's just no way I would trade any star that I had, regardless of the compensation, to a contender, especially the reigning back-to-back Super Bowl champions. And then I just look at the NFC side of things. I don't see a team on that side that it makes sense, or they have the capabilities of taking on the franchise tag. And regardless, I'm thinking of the compensation. I just saw Amari Cooper and Devontae Adams get traded for third-round picks. I don't know a third-rounder really pushes the needle for this team. Look at our current third-round pick, who just was a healthy scratch. We have no clue what's going on with him, Jermaine Burton, and the other third-round pick that just got cut. Like, those guys, they're not a guaranteed hit. So for me, it doesn't make sense to trade him regardless of what their record is. It makes more sense to keep him, and then if you want to trade him, franchise tag him and then trade him in the offseason to a team that will then give you the highest bid, because you got to get some compensation from him, right? At that point during the offseason, go ahead and get your 4th, 5th round pick for T. Higgins. But I just don't think it makes sense at this point.
Okay. All right. I just threw it out there. One other deal was made in the NFL yesterday. Cam Akers was traded from Houston back to Minnesota. He just left Minnesota to go to Houston, but now that Joe Mixon's healthy again, no room for Akers to play. It was ugly baseball last night in the Bronx. I mean, you had terrible fielding by Cleveland, bad base running by the Yankees. But New York takes a 2-0 lead over the Guardians in the ALCS. Aaron Judge clubbed his first home run of this postseason for New York. He's going to be the MVP of the league. He's been quiet in the postseason. He's walked a lot, so he's gotten on base. But a home run last night. Game 3 tomorrow night in Cleveland. Big weekend in Cleveland. You got the ALCS. You got the Bengals and the Browns. Big weekend up in Cleveland. NLCS side, Citi Field, there's no doubt will be rocking tonight. It may not be Philadelphia, but it will be rocking tonight for Game 3. Mets and the Dodgers tied at 1 game apiece. Luis Severino gets a nod for the Mets. Walker Buehler will start it for the Dodgers. We've got our picks coming up here shortly. But Casey, let's zero in. I read, you probably saw it. Did you see the post on that Nick Chubb made about coming back this week?
No, I have not. Enlighten me.
Okay. Well, as everybody knows, he had that horrific. I mean, it was one of the ugliest injuries that a player can have. Right around the goal line last year when his knee was just completely torn up. ACL came all the way back. Now, always the MO on Chubb has always been not only a great player, but, by all accounts, anyone who's ever been around him in college or the NFL, there is no one that works harder in the league. He doesn't say anything. He shows up and does his job and works his tail off to be great every single day. And he's gone through this rehab for 10 months. Well, he posted on social media, he says, look, I was brought in here to lead this team to a championship. He said, we haven't even come close. And basically, I'm paraphrasing, he says, I am going to do everything I possibly can to get us going in the right direction and to see if we can't start winning football games around here. But you'll get everything you got from me. And I think that everybody certainly believes that's true. That's just not some random BS sort of post, because that's who Nick Chubb is. Now, I don't know what his pitch count is going to be in his first game back with a running game. But, man, it's always so dangerous. You're playing a big rival. You're playing a division opponent. The same team has lost 4 straight games. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong outside of one game this year. And they're at home. And they get Nick Chubb back. And again, how good he's going to be, how much he's going to be able to run it, I don't know. The Bengals were better last week, certainly, against a run with a healthy array of defensive linemen, which they've not had since the season opener. With Rankins coming back, Hill not playing as many snaps, Murphy's back. They have pieces coming back that were better in the last game against the Giants. But Casey, look, I'm not predicting. I've already said I think the Bengals are going to win the game in a close game. We'll get to picks shortly. But that's a lot of things for me that worry me going on at the same time. Are you in that camp, or you're like, it's all nonsense, they still stink?
I do think that this team stinks, but I also fear that the Bengals are very inconsistent too. I don't know what team's going to show up on Sunday.
Yeah,
I
right.
just don't, and that worries me. I also worry that the Browns are getting that point where they got nothing to lose either.
Yeah.
You might get fooled on a trick play. You might get fooled on a fake punt here and there that could cost you the game, and that stuff to me is where I grow my concern. I don't have any concern with their offense and what it is with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. It's just not good. It's not efficient. You just traded away your best wideout, and that just makes it easier on the already struggling backfield that we have, right? So far this year, it feels like the team has either decided like, hey, we're going to stop the run here, or we're going to stop the pass. And they've elected more recently to stop the run, and it's worked out in our favor very well. We just played the Giants, who were trying to run the ball quite consistently with Tyrone Tracy, and you saw what happened. We only gave up 7 points. So I feel like this team it's yes, it's a little concerning, but there's so much chaos going around this Browns organization right now. The leadership in question there. I just don't feel like I can be all that concerned with this team. And maybe that's a bad approach, but I just, even with all the numbers that you've listed, that we've never won in Cleveland since the Joe Burrow era, we've only put up 19 points. This team is just not the same as it was last year. There's something very wrong, and we all know that it's basically quarterback play. It's the leadership. It's been a team that hasn't had a consistent run game. The offensive line has really struggled, and Nick Chubb hasn't been there, and that'll change, but I just don't feel like that's enough to get them over the hump to have them stop struggling.
Okay. All right. If I'm the Browns, and I'm with you, I think we're going to see some desperation plays, because we just talked about the Bengals. If the Bengals slip to 2-5, I think they're done for making the playoffs. Mathematically, as we acknowledge, no, they're not. But if the Browns lose, they're 1-6. They're really done. Now, some might say they're done now. But at least if they could get to 2-5, if you think the Bengals still have a fighting chance at 2-5, maybe you base that more on who they have at quarterback as opposed to who the Browns have at 2-5 at quarterback. I keep thinking, I've thought it for the last couple of years, a year and a half. I keep thinking that Watson's going to bust loose, and he showed some games last year before he got hurt that he's capable of it. I think it's one of the great mysteries in all of sports. I really do. And you wonder about the off-field stuff that's gone on with him. And, I mean, you'd be a fool to say that you don't think that stuff affects his on-field stuff, because that is just ridiculous. No person, and it can be all his fault. No person can go through what he's going through the last few years, and I am not dismissing it in any form or fashion. But nobody can go through that and not have them be affected doing their job or just living their lives. But somewhere down there, it's still in him, and that's what scares me. If I'm the Browns, I come in and I say, I'm going to hand it off 40 times, maybe 45 times. Jerome Ford's still in there, former Bearcat. How much Chubb? We discussed this. How much he can run it? I don't know. But I'm going in there and I'm saying that's what I'm doing, and we'll see if they can stop it. Would you do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great game plan, and that's what they should do. To be honest with you, we'll see if they do that. I don't know if they will though.
All right, then what does? You sound like you're not concerned. What does worry you about this game?
I think if the Browns defense completely takes control and they look like they did a year ago, where they were the number one defense, and Myles Garrett is tearing up Amarius Mims, Orlando Brown Jr., whoever. If they get consistent pressure on Joe Burrow and he's sacked 5 times this game, that worries me, because I do
Yeah,
think if they can make it an ugly game, I think that's what they want, right?
yeah.
The Browns want to make this an ugly game and make you uh, have to stop their running attack, right? They're going to score somewhere between 10 to 17 points. That's all they've scored all season long, is somewhere in between that range. They haven't scored more than 20 points yet in this season. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The Bengals, they can score a lot, but if they can make it an ugly game and they force the Bengals to make mistakes, I feel like that is the thing that scares you the most. Is, can Myles Garrett take over the game, completely eliminate our best weapon, which is Joe Burrow, and make us too one-dimensional? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is what scares me the most. And those are the stats. I mean, you said it yourself. We've only ever scored 19 points in Cleveland. That plays in Cleveland's favor.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a disgusting game. I just feel like Deshaun will also make a lot of mistakes too. I mean, it's been very clear that he's not been the same quarterback. 30 plus sacks, and more than half of those sacks are on him.
Right.
Categorically, they list off if you create your own pressures, if you're stepping into those pressures, and he's been one of the worst quarterbacks at that. And I think we need that. We need that for this Bengals defensive line, who's struggled to get to the quarterback. And I just think that is the difference in this game, is that, yes, they might be able to make it a ugly game, but I think we're going to also make it look really ugly on their end too. So,
Okay. All right. All right. Let's get to the picks, Casey. We got a big weekend of college football. The game of the weekend, and we'll get to it in a minute, though, is going to be Georgia at Texas. Texas now in the Southeastern Conference. That is the game. Texas is not lost, ranked number 1. Georgia's lost one time already to Alabama in that crazy game. We're getting to the point of the season now in college football, and there was a big article, which was a good one today. I always revert back to The Athletic. I pay for it with my own money. I don't get it for free. I give them a lot of pub because they have a lot of great stuff, and they have space to write about stuff like this, of looking at the one-loss teams who have the best chance to still reach the college football playoff, and even drifting into 2-loss teams and the best chance right now of reaching the college football playoff, because as everybody knows, we're going from 4 teams to 12. I made the comment after Ohio State gave away the game last week at Oregon for the Buckeyes' first loss of the season, that now all of a sudden that proverbial margin for error, it starts getting very slim. If Ohio State loses one and they get all the way to the championship game of the Big Ten, and we're lose to second time, but they get to the title game, they probably got a pretty good chance of getting in, right? Same thing with Penn State. Okay, they lose a game. Maybe they get to the championship game. They lose. They'll probably get in. Same thing in the SEC. Georgia gets in with one loss to the championship game. They get beat. Maybe they still get in. Okay. Ole Miss has already lost twice. Ole Miss loses a game, they're done. Probably done already, but they're done. But it's really interesting if Georgia were to lose this game. Their road for basically is you got to win out, including the SEC championship, because 3 losses you're not getting in unless everything just goes crazy. You get the Oregons and the Ohio States and the Penn States and the Alabamas and a bunch of these other teams that will be at-large teams. If they were to lose twice and a whole bevy of them have 2 losses, then it's a different ballgame, but that's probably not going to happen. So, all right, let's start with the picks. We're going to put Indiana on the slate this week because there are 3 undefeated teams left in the Big Ten. Indiana's one of them. Penn State's undefeated. Oregon's undefeated. I'm trying to think real quick. Is Illinois undefeated? I don't know if Illinois is undefeated or not. But anyway,
no, they are not.
I don't think so. They've lost 1 game. So you've got Penn State, you've got Oregon, and you've got Indiana, led by the former MAC Player of the Year at Ohio University, Curtis Rourke, who's having as great a year as any quarterback in college football. A lot of other guys are getting big names, getting big pub. Guys might have more gaudy stats slinging it around because they throw it more than they run it. But Curtis Rourke has had an incredible year. This is the first sellout, and Luke is not here today. This is the first true sellout for Indiana football at home since 2021. Their over-under for wins this season, I think, was 5. They've already won that many. They've won 6. Now they've got Nebraska coming in. Nebraska's a good team. They've got a dynamic first-year quarterback in Raiola. This is a big, big game, and they're fired up in Hoosier land. Hoosiers favored by 6.5. Casey, I will go first. I'm taking the fighting Kurt Signetti. Who you taking?
Ooh, this is an interesting matchup. I like Indiana a lot. I think they could win, but I don't feel like the 5-1 Cornhuskers. They've only lost to Illinois, and it was an overtime loss.
Yep.
They've played teams very well this year, and I'm not going to look at last week versus Rutgers and say that that's who they are. I think you look at the body of work at what they've done all season long, and they've been pretty good. I think that this is going to be a closer game than what people want it to be, and that's why I'm going to be taking the Cornhuskers plus 6.5. If this was a 7 or more, I think it would be a slam dunk Cornhuskers. But as it stands right now, I'll favor the underdog for now, but keep an eye on the spread for sure.
Okay, all right. Luke, of course, is picking his school, the Indiana Hoosiers. He's on the football beat. He goes to all the games, has to cover the games for the student radio and website. So that's that. This is an interesting game. A lot of times we put up UC because it's UC. But this is a really, really interesting game. UC was on that group in the Athletic article about 2 losses. Now, remember, the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Atlantic Coast Conference, the champion of those conferences all get an automatic bid. It doesn't matter if you have 5 losses, okay? UC has lost twice, but only once in conference. And that was that overtime loss down in Lubbock against Texas Tech. Arizona State is having the same kind of year that UC is having. Not many people thought they'd be very good, and they have got it going on, and they can really run the football. If it weren't for the kid at Boise State, the running back at Arizona State might be the leader for the Heisman Trophy right now, as far as running backs go. UC is a 2.5-point favorite. Arizona State is coming off a win against Utah, although Utah played without its quarterback. I'm going with the Bearcats. I think the Bearcats got something going. I think there's going to be more life than there's been in 2 years down at Nippert Stadium. I think they cover the 2.5. Casey?
So I'll admit that I also had UC, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to pick UC just because you all also picked UC. So I'm picking
Oh.
Arizona State here. I try to convince myself that the matchup is actually not very good for UC. They've got a pretty good running back there.
Yep.
Read option, I think they really struggle with. It'll be a good game. This is actually a pretty good game, I think, on the schedule. Underrated. And I kind of agree with you. If they win this game, I kind of like UC's schedule moving forward. This is an interesting. I like it a lot, but I'm going to take Arizona State just because I didn't want to be. I want to make up some ground if I
Okay.
can. I
Okay.
want to make up
Okay.
some ground.
Okay. All right. Okay. By the way, do you have the updated standings?
I do not.
Okay. Well, we'll get to those after this week. We'll do that next week. Luke is going with the Bearcats as well. Okay. We move on. 2 games down, a couple more in the college game, and then the pro game. Matchup, here you go. The Ohio University. They've won 10 or more games 5 years in a row. One of their heartbreaking losses last year was against Miami. Miami played in the MAC championship game, and I love Coach Martin. But Coach Martin, I don't love you that much. You're a 3.5-point favorite over my alma mater. The Bobcats are starting to really get it going. That quarterback they have, Navarro, is really exciting to watch. Bobcats, they win. They don't just cover, they win.
They win. Love it. And guess
They win.
what, Tom?
Money line.
I'm with you. I think the Bobcats, they get it done. Miami's been very disappointing this year. I think everyone was very, very high on Miami, and they've just not been the team that we all thought they could be.
Yeah.
And I think the Bobcats, like you said, they're really exciting right now. I think they're rolling.
All right, and then Luke is going to go, I think. I can't believe it. I mean, it makes me want to not talk to him for a couple of days. I cannot believe he's picking against his dad's alma mater. I would never pick against Indiana. Well, I'm about to pick against Indiana when they play Ohio State in a couple of weeks, but we'll see what the spread on that one is. I hope Indiana goes into that game undefeated in Columbus. That would be fun. Indiana would probably be ranked about 10th or 11th. All right, he picks Miami. All right, Ohio State has a week off this week. This is the game right here. Georgia, ranked number 5 or 6, depending on the poll. Texas, number 1. Became number 1 after Georgia lost to Alabama, you may remember. And this spread has Texas in Austin minus 3.5. Now, look, Texas is really good. There's no doubt about that. They're having to win games with 2 different quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers was a big Heisman hopeful when the year began. Arch Manning has taken over since then. Ewers is getting back. To me, I think Georgia wins this game. I just think that in the big games, Texas seems to lay an egg at least once a year to me. This wouldn't be laying an egg if you get beat by Georgia. Georgia's Georgia. But I think Georgia wins this game and goes into Austin and takes it from them. Casey?
Yeah, I feel very similar to you, Tom. This will be their first true test.
Oklahoma wasn't a test last week. You're right.
And
Oklahoma is a fraud. They're not any good. You're right.
And I don't really believe in Michigan either. Those are their 2 teams this year that they're really just kind of standing their ground on being the number 1 ranked team in the nation. I don't buy it. I don't buy it whatsoever. I'm going with Georgia. I think they play better in bigger games anyways. And we'll see. This is going to be a great game, but I'm taking Georgia.
Okay. How about Luke? I never saw his pick.
He was also taking Georgia.
Wow. Okay. Number 1 team in the country. Not one of us is taking that game. Okay. What's up next? Are we moving into the pro game now? We are. All right. Cincinnati at Cleveland. I've already told you I think the Bengals are going to win the game. I don't think, however, they cover 6.5. I think the Bengals win the game. I take Cleveland to cover that divisional game. Both teams extraordinarily inconsistent. There are a lot of X factors out there. Bengals defense, Chubb, run game, Watson, Bengals offense. Are they what we've seen most of the year? What happened against the Giants? That to me all adds up that 6.5 is too big. If this were 5, 4.5, I got it. But I'm taking Cleveland to cover, Bengals to win.
I would generally agree with you. However, I feel like that's exactly why the books are a little strange, right? They're throwing out this huge number that I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. Feels like it should be a lot closer. These are just two teams that are gonna have a slugfest, right?
Yep.
But I'm gonna put on my orange colored glasses here, and I'm
Well, the
going
Browns
to
wear orange too.
well, orange and black colored glasses,
Okay.
and I'm gonna take the Bengals. I think that the line is very fishy. I feel like they want you to take Cleveland, and that's why I'm gonna take the
Okay.
Bengals.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, you know about gambling. I don't. I've said it before. The only sin I haven't had. And then there's Luke is going with the Bengalis. I know he's excited about the Bengalis. Jury's out for, I think, everybody else, but he's excited about it. This game is probably the best NFC. Well, it's a great game. It's a great matchup. Detroit coming off just a shellacking in Dallas, just handing it to the Cowboys in every way imaginable, 47-9. Now you've got Minnesota, who is the surprise team above all surprise teams in the National Football League. Former number one pick out of USC, Sam Darnold, has taken over there after they let Kirk Cousins walk out the door to Atlanta. They're playing great. But there's some uncertainty there at running back because they've had some injuries and that kind of thing. I just think that Dan Campbell has in a division game, based on all the big game experience, some of which Campbell was good, and admittedly Campbell in others wasn't so good. But I think he's learned a lot from them. If Chris Spielman tells me he's as good a leader of men as anybody he's been around, I'm taking the Battling Lions. Now, those are normally your guys, Casey, the Lions. You've jumped off that bandwagon, though.
I don't know if I jumped off it. I think that the loss to Aiden Hutchinson is going to prove to be far too great for them to overcome. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Vikings at all. The other thing, too, this Vikings defense is one of the best in the league at creating havoc, creating tackles for losses, really just disrupting offensive play. And I feel like that goes against Jared Goff's play style. He really needs you to be able to. He doesn't need all this havoc in front of him that he's about to endure.
Good
so
point.
that being said, the spread is 2.5. I think this game could come down to a field goal. And if you're asking me what team is actually going to kick that field goal, I don't know if Dan Campbell will sit there at a 50-yard field goal and say, it's 4th and 1, I'm going to go for it, and then he's just not going to convert. I feel like the team that will do it is the Vikings. So that being said, I'm taking the Vikings. Taking the Vikings here.
And who did Luke take? I didn't see his picks. He got us the picks late today.
He's also taking the Vikings.
Well, he's a guy, and I got to give him credit because he's a guy that said to me before the season ever started, he said, I think Darnold with a good offensive line and a good running game has a chance to have a good year. I wouldn't buy in a second of that, but so far he has been spot on. Okay, a couple of pro games in the books. This is the best game of the weekend as far as sex appeal is concerned. That's for sure. You got the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champs taking on the team they beat in the Super Bowl a year ago. San Francisco has gone through all kinds of ups and downs already this season. I'm surprised the Niners are a favorite in this game, even though they're at home. And I've said before on this show once, I've said it 1,000 times, it will never happen again. I will never bet against Patrick Mahomes in any game for the rest of my life. Therefore, Chiefs to win, not just to cover, to win.
I'm with you, Tom. Just won't do it. Won't bet against them. I think this is a big game for them, and I think that they're going to pull through once again. I think the additions to Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster are actually way bigger than many people want to realize. Juju had over 100 yards receiving, and Kareem Hunt had over 100 yards rushing, and they just joined the teams. It's insane what they can do with just guys picking them right up off the street. I really like.
Why don't the Bengals pick up guys off the streets?
Well, they do. They're just not former good players or great players. They're just practice squad guys.
Okay. All right. All right. Who'd Luke pick in this game?
He picked the 49ers.
Wow. Well, I mean, they've got the talent to win a game. I mean, let's don't kid anybody here. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries, McCaffrey and so forth. They're wide receivers. They've had a lot, they've had a lot of guys hurt, but they still have incredible talent on that team. This was a team last year that everybody thought was going to win the Super Bowl. And they haven't changed a hell of a lot since last year. So that's a good team. Is that it? Are those the only games, or we got one more?
That's all the games, Tom.
That's all. All right. Okay. We got them done. We will be coming back your way. It's a big weekend, Casey. I want to get your predictions before we get out of here on baseball. Okay? You got games 3, 4, and 5 in the NLCS starting tonight, all in New York. You've got 3, 4, and 5 Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Cleveland. When we come back for the show on Monday, where will those series stand? It's 2-0 Yankees, Cleveland, 3 games in Cleveland. When we have the show Monday morning, where does that series stand?
Yankees will have won, and it'll be a 3-0 sweep. They will
4-0. So it's best of 7.
Yeah. It'll be a 4-0 sweep.
Okay, all right.
And then I'm gonna say
Mets and the Dodgers. They're 1-1 going into today.
I'm gonna say the Mets will have a game.
Okay,
will
3-2.
Yeah, 3-2.
Okay, all right. I'm going to say that the Guardians win 2 out of 3 at home against the Yankees. So they'll be going back to the Bronx. It'll be a 3-2 Yankees lead by Sunday. And then by Saturday night, Sunday morning, I'm going to say the Dodgers have a 3-2 lead over the Mets. So I think both of those series get at least to Game 6. And for the TV networks, that's all that matters, because that's when they start making money, once you get to Game 6. All right, Case, last thing before we go, what's the move this weekend? The move.
Ooh, the move.
Lot going on. I tell you, are you going down to Blink?
No, I'll be doing the Bearcat Bash. Our one bash that we're doing this year is this weekend, and
homecoming.
Yeah. So we'll be down there. We'll have the video board, the stage set up. We'll be selling beer, and there'll be mixed drinks.
Wow!
So come on down. Yeah, we've got some really great stuff down there. So if you're interested, if you want to come down and enjoy us, and join us and enjoy the games and whatnot this upcoming Saturday, you can do so at the Bearcat Bash.
Okay, all right. But so that's the move. Is the Bearcat Bash?
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
Well, mine's not anymore. I know for Luke, it's for him. I could speak for him. They've got homecoming this weekend at Indiana. He has to work the football game, but the parties they have going on in and around Bloomington for this game this week is insane. So, they need a win there at Indiana. I'm rooting like heck for them to win that game. For me, I mean, I got my own game. I just always pray for I got a game down at I got an interesting game this weekend, Casey. UNLV is one of those teams that is trying to win playing in the Mountain West with Boise State. Those two teams meet next weekend. UNLV's only lost one game, and that was in overtime to Syracuse. So they're playing at Oregon State. So I'm on my way to Corvallis, Oregon for the second time this season, the second time in my life. And I think that's going to be a good game. It's on at 10 o'clock Eastern. It's the only big team that's really having a great year in UNLV. It's going to be on that late Eastern time on the CW network. So I'm just praying for travel on time and making it safely. So the move is getting out to Corvallis, Oregon, and back. So that's that. All right. Casey, thanks for everything as always. We'll be back your way on Monday, just after 9 o'clock. We thank UDF and Encore Technologies for their outstanding sponsorship and making this program possible. Casey, thank you for all your great work. Have a great weekend, my friend.
You too, Tom.
All right, buddy. For all of us here on Dialed In, I'm Thom Brennaman. We'll catch you on Monday. Have a great weekend.